In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Mr. Quintin Bland. Quintin Bland was born in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and spent his childhood moving across the country as a military brat, following his father's service in the armed forces. Following in those footsteps, he served 6 years in the U.S. Air Force uh, before pursuing a career in healthcare. Quintin became a licensed practical nurse, LPN, a role he dedicated over 12 years to, including tribal nursing assignments and navigating the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Driven by a lifelong passion for learning and service, he earned his bachelor's degree from Mississippi State University and his master's from LSU Shreveport through online studies. Alongside his healthcare career, Quintin recently began seminary school, a pursuit that has deepened his personal growth and spiritual insight. Outside of professional achievements, Quintin is a devoted father and former basketball enthusiast, so much so that he named his son Jordan. Despite his son not following in his basketball footsteps, his love for community and family inspired him to found MyAbbaFather, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting fathers and families, especially those navigating hardships. Through this work, Quentin channels his experiences of resilience, homelessness, and family challenges into actionable programs that strengthen fathers and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the show, um, there we go. Um, hey, Quentin, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir. Well, it's good to have you on the show today. Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
Oh man, sound like you said it just right, but I appreciate it.
Oh, most definitely. Well, so what I like to do is I like to start with your roots and resilience. So can you tell us what was it like growing up as a military brat, constantly moving across the country?
Well, you know, you didn't really have a lot of communication with the outside, because we stayed on military bases, so it was a very very sheltered upbringing. Safe but sheltered, and it was hard. It was hard to really keep friends. Um, Having to move around a lot. It was hard to get a girlfriend. It was hard to get friends, and I was always the new guy on the block. I was the miss. So yeah, they have that up my entire childhood. Eventually, I believe that shaped me not caring what other people think. Always being a guy on the outside. Helped me to be able to truly become who I am.
Mhm. So tell us what are some of the places that you guys been to that you could recollect?
Oh yeah, station. I was born in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Mhm.
I'm the oldest. I have two siblings. My little sister, she's born in Okinawa, Japan. My brother's from Florida. We've been to Waukegan around Illinois. We've been to California. It was just a few of the places, and then I traveled also as well when I was in the military. Did training. So we went through a few places, and it was good to being able to travel abroad and learn about different cultures.
Mhm. So, were you following in your father's footsteps when you went to the Air Force?
Yeah, yeah. I actually was the whole healthcare thing, and I actually was following in my dad's footsteps. The healthcare and the military thing. I was following in my dad's footsteps. My dad, old school. He instilled in me, get a job. Healthcare. Job will always be there. People always get sick in the military too. But
Mm.
I joined that military, man. I found out that wasn't for me, man. I did about 6 years military and found out that no, military life wasn't for me. Wrong. If you don't have discipline, I recommend it. And then, you looking for education, I do recommend your education to be paid for. I do recommend it. But, just because benefits are available to a certain career path, I don't think you should just go for it, for that. I believe in finding your purpose, the purpose that God's called you to do.
So, how did your father's service shape your own decisions to join the Air Force?
Like I said, it was the school. When I joined when I was like 21, I think, and I didn't want to, fully commit to it, so I signed the track, and they did help pay for some of my schooling. The
Mhm.
discipline, I pretty much had that down pat. I didn't really go for discipline. I really just went for the benefits, to get school paid for. Being able to travel and learn and be able to adapt, in different circumstances. That's probably the greatest experience I've learned. Being able to adapt with people that it might not be black or white, that might speak different languages and stuff like that, and you have to learn the area, adapt.
Mhm. So, what lessons from your military experience still guide you today?
Um, Military, my experiences, I say, um, probably patience with people. It's probably the most important thing that I've learned and that I've gotten from the military. Starting out in basic training, uh, working as a team to be able to meet a mission, and it started off as simple as washing our clothes or making our bed or cleaning up the barracks, but that
Mhm.
also shaped in the workforce is the exact same thing. When
Mhm.
you work with people, you have to be sensitive and patient to their culture. You never know what people are going through and what they, bring up, how they were brought up. Everybody's not brought up the same. And in order to meet a mission, you have to be able to adapt or meet them where they are in order to meet the common goal.
So, can you share a moment from your service that tested your resilience?
When I first joined, I'll tell you a story. When I first joined, I'll never forget. It was about 11 o'clock at night when we actually got on the bus. Got on the bus. We got there around like 11. They did they speech that we met the drill sergeants, and then we went to bed at 11. And about 3 or 4 in the morning, the strange instructors came back, and was they was doing hitting something across our beds and woke us all up at 4 the next morning. So we started
Mhm.
out. And, I tried to join the branch that they said was the easiest with the Air Force, but boy was I wrong about that. So the first phone call we got, I remember calling my mom, and I called my mom, and I told my mom, I told her maybe I should have just, I probably should have just stuck with college. And finish that commitment that you got. And it was like grown men in there crying and stuff like that. But I felt like I made a mistake, but I just stuck it out, and ended up learning a lot, and I made a lot of lifelong friends in there.
Yeah. So, how did your transition from military life to healthcare unfold?
That was my job in the military, was a medic. That actually was my job. So when I got out, I just pretty much just kept doing what I was doing.
Mhm. So let's talk a little bit about your healing and service. What drew you to become a licensed practical nurse?
Well, I just always like I've always like help. Any way I can. If you meet me as a person, I help people. And I just needed a job. I needed a job at the time. I didn't have a vehicle, and I was in my early 20s. And I joined the military because I needed the stability. I needed the stability. And they told me that this is where the critical need was. I did it in the military, working with veterans that were, coming back from war, getting their shots and stuff like that, and make sure they were war ready, deployable.
Mhm. Oh wow. how did tribal nursing assignments deepen your understanding of community health?
Oh yeah. Well, that's a good question. Let me think on that for a minute. How did nursing say it again? How did travel nursing deepen my
Yes, deepen your understanding of community health.
how did it deepen my understanding of
Yes,
community?
yes.
Well, working it deepened my understanding because I didn't understand how the process would go if like a pandemic would happen, you know. And when I went out there during the pandemic, there was no processes or anything like that in place. And going through that episode where I was working at hospitals and seeing people just die like that on the spot without any type of explanation or anything like that helped me to understand the importance of the processes that are in place with the CDC and the health departments, and
Mhm.
at the local level. Yeah, working out there during that pandemic was definitely an eye opener, and it had me asking a lot of questions on what if something like this happened again?
Mhm. So, were you just strictly working on the base, or were you out in the civilian population?
Both. I worked and I worked in the civilian population. But during those pandemic assignments, I worked in New Jersey, New York level. On a like on the line. There's a line that you cross over. To get into New York. So right on that line in New Jersey, New York area, I was working at
Mhm.
a hospital out there, and yeah, that right there was an experience. I mean, I saw more death out there than that right there was I will never forget working 60 hours a week and also just how emotionally drained it was, seeing
Mhm.
families coming there over and over and over again, from family members just dying, with no explanation. The doctors not even not able to answer,
Mhm.
why it happened, because not only was it older people in there dying, but it was younger people in there as well. No explanation at all, none.
Mhm. So, what were the most difficult moments you faced during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, the difficult moments I faced was actually having to do paperwork, basically to get the people out there. What do you call those people that actually, come and get the people from the funeral home, from the nursing homes and hospitals
Oh,
when
the morticians.
yeah, I was having. I mean, I did more paperwork and had more relations with the morticians than I did the doctors out there. It was just so many people dying, and at the hospital, was getting filled up because people from the nursing homes were dying as well. So they were
Mhm.
coming from the nursing homes, coming to the hospitals, and then there was patient care workers and stuff getting sick too. It was a disaster. Having to consistently let family members in crying, multiple people crying, grieving families.
So, did that take a toll on you? I mean, were you feeling some type of way?
Yeah, it definitely took a toll on me. Like I said, it was emotionally draining.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, like I said, healthcare is a great field, but I would recommend on getting into it for the money.
Mhm.
Healthcare is not something that you should be doing for the money. It's emotionally tolling.
Mhm.
It is.
So, how did you balance personal risk with professional duty during that time?
What personal risk from getting the COVID-19? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we were fully suited up out there. We wore what's called personal protective equipment, and when I was
Mhm.
out there at the pandemic, we actually we had on all yellow. They had yellow suits. They kind of looked like spacesuits, but they were yellow, and we were measured for N95 masks.
Wow. So, was that supply of N95 masks, were they like just set out in the population, or did they give them to you guys exclusively where you got your number of masks per day, per week, per month? How did that work?
Well, I believe the high were getting some type of government funding, and I'm sure that came from high above, either from the CDC or whatever health department. They would get funding in order to give us people gear to wear,
Mhm.
during.
Mhm. So, what does healing mean to you beyond medicine?
Healing means to me is a holistic approach. So healing would be, mentally, spiritually, and physically. When I'm able to be okay in my mind, be okay in my spirit, and in my physical, that's when I know I'm healed completely. You know, I feel like healing is necessary. In order to find God's purpose for your life.
Um, let's talk about your faith and fatherhood. What inspired you to name your son Jordan?
I named my son Jordan because I love playing basketball. I love playing basketball. I always grew up playing. My played basketball. She coached my first team. I started playing ball when I was 7 in Okinawa, Japan. That's where my sister was born, and then my mom coached the team out.
Mhm.
And I named my son Jordan, and yeah, he don't even play basketball. He plays soccer. So
Was there any Michael Jordan thoughts in that?
not at all.
Just
Nope,
Jordan.
just Jordan.
Um, so, how has fatherhood changed your perspective on leadership?
Fatherhood is what shaped me as a leader. Being an example for my sons. Like I said, I came and I was blessed to come up from a two-parent home, even though, my parents are divorced now, but my childhood, they were together, and I was blessed to be able to, live uh, in the two-parent home, the world shaped and molded me into the man I was today. And my sons, I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to have a male example in their lives, their father.
Hmm.
Because I see a lot of fathers today, they don't really care about their children. They don't really care. They're doing their own thing. They're not really concerned about their children or how, their actions affect the next generation. And so I make sure that my sons know that I love them and care about them.
So, can you tell us what led you to found My Abba Father?
I said I found my Abba Father, based off the pain and struggle that I went to. Like I said, I was blessed to come up in, a two-parent home, and I went off and got married when I was like 21, 22. I went off and got married. My dad told me not to do it, but I did it anyway. So I went off and got married, and I was kind of pressured to do it early because, like I said, my dad was a preacher, and I thought it was just gonna be picture perfect. The way you just get in here, get married,
Mhm.
have a family, work, everything be okay, picture perfect. But what I realized is that it's not that easy. It's not that easy. I was looking at, picture perfect. The Bible is black and white, and you think that your life is gonna go black and white, just like the Bible. But the Bible talks about grace and mercy, and that's what I found. I went through a national course. Child support was going up, dealt with anxiety and depression, and on top of that, I was homeless. And I didn't have a support system. So MyAbbaFather is an organization that was built out of the pain and struggle that I had. So the services that we offer is all the things that I didn't have. Legal support. I didn't have that. I wasn't able to go to mental health support. That service as well, and also just an encouragement group just for fathers when you're down. Because I have fathers that come to me and they had a down place in their life to where they don't see the end of it. And I'm able to relate because I've been there personally. At the bottom of the barrel, man. Bills due, homeless, no clothes, no support, no nothing. But now we have an organization that can help fight that.
So, can you tell us like what contributed to the resilience that you had, that you could bounce back from that situation to come back and create your own foundation to actually support the people that were going through that same situation? Where did that resilience come from?
That resilience, God, that resilience came from Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
I got down where I couldn't depend on anybody else, my family, my friends, no transportation, no support. I depended on Jesus Christ. That, that's it. I was able to proclaim the gospel when I was homeless at the gym because that was the only thing I had to stand on, when I was depressed and when I felt like there was no ending to this. But God held my hand and he guided me through it, so I can have the strength to be able to guide and help other fathers and families as well to get through situations like this.
How does your nonprofit support fathers navigating hardship?
All right, so we have a few different programs available. Like I said, the first program is just being able to encourage fathers, you know, even if it's just an appointment to just talk and support, because sometimes it's not always financial. Sometimes people just need an ear to listen to, and they might need counsel. That's without emotion. They need some logical counsel. And so we also have partners that we work with. We work with Mission First. It's an organization that has legal, medical assistance as well. It's in order to get them custody. Maybe a father or mother that might not be able to, be in their children's lives, whatever the case may be. They're at odds with the other parent, or maybe and we're accepting donations to be able to offer emergency assistance. You have to be qualified for that. And also we're partnered with the Goodness Project. They have resources to where the family needs clothing, they need clothing or food or anything like that. And just things like that, whatever the case may be, whatever you need, we're willing to point you to the resources you need in order to get back on your feet.
So, with this situation, especially with those fathers, I mean, do you guys do any type mentoring? How do you bring these guys into your program to help them to reestablish and to get going?
Mentoring, yeah. I definitely do the mentoring. I take care of the mentoring.
Mhm.
We mentor fathers, and with the nonprofit MyAbbaFather, we're not able to turn away people because they don't believe in Jesus Christ. We're still gonna help the best we can. Even if they don't believe in Jesus Christ. But times now, I strongly recommend it. That's all I can do is recommend. We're not gonna turn nobody away if they don't believe in Jesus
So, can you tell us what personal experiences of
Christ.
homelessness or struggle
Yeah.
informed your work? Hello?
You there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I was asking what personal experiences of homelessness or struggle inform your work?
What? Could you repeat that question one more time?
What personal experiences of homelessness or struggle inform your work?
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you about the time I was homeless. What happened actually is, uh, I was working, at a nursing home as a nurse and as an LPN, and I was at work one day, and my vehicle actually got stolen, from the job, and all my clothes in it. I just got done doing my laundry at my mom's house, so I had everything in there, clothes, shoes, laptop, everything in there. And I went outside and the car was gone, So I went, back inside and told the administrator about it. And, they didn't do anything about it, didn't do anything about it. So, I tried to work a couple of days at the job, but I couldn't focus working because I didn't have anything. So, I took an Uber to the gym, Uber to the gym, a 24-hour gym, and actually I just stayed there, just played it off, working out. I worked out, all day. And I woke up at 4 in the morning from sleeping in the massage chairs, and then I showered at the gym because it was a 24-hour gym. I stayed there all the time. And that's where I began to proclaim the gospel right there at the gym. We was having devotion at about 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, to tell you, man, that devotion, is what kept me sane. It's what kept me alive. Claiming the gospel to other people is what helped encourage me. So not only was I able to encourage other people, but I was doing it to encourage myself because that's what I needed. So what I reminded myself of in my situations is what I began to proclaim the gospel to other people about.
Okay.
And that is what molded everything.
So, but in that whole process, I mean, because I know you said that you were like depressed and you had PTSD and things was just going wrong and so forth. Can you tell us, like during that time, when you was coming out of this, or to get you out of this? I mean, like, had you start like just being all about reading your Bible? What were some of the things that you relied on to help you to come out of that?
Oh yeah, I've been saved already, but I focused on spending more time in the Word. Yeah, most definitely, and that's what helped me get out of it.
Mm,
Being able to proclaim the gospel and the Word over my situation. And that's what helped me to get out of it.
mm.
Yeah, so definitely that time when I was homeless and everything was stripped from me, it allowed me to focus on myself. That was the positive out of it.
Mhm.
So, when you're in times of distress to where you don't have any, thing to do, you try to do everything you can, you just got to sit and just wait on God, because that's an opportunity for you to focus on yourself and self-reflect.
Mhm. So, what kind of words of wisdom or encouragement could you give to some other young person that's going through what you went through at that time you went through it?
Yeah, what I would do, the first thing I would do is establish a relationship with Jesus Christ, because He's going to be the one to give you the strength to keep going. And after I give them, salvation, or offer them a way to salvation, we're going to see what type of resources we can get you involved in, whether, some type of agency to get them off the streets and food, and go from there, because there's several agencies that will help. And if drugs come into play, they got to be willing to want to come off that. We can't force nobody to come off the street.
That is true.
Mhm.
What's one story from my Abba Father that reminds you why you do this work?
One story I had help, uh, still currently helping now. He had a situation where the mother had left town with his child. The mother had left town with the child, and he was upset. And I went through the same thing, personally in my life, a situation similar to that. And the mother left town with his child, and he was distraught. He was actually in tears at one of the meetings or whatever. And he told me that he wanted to just go up there, go up there and see where she was at and stuff like that. But he listened to the advice that I gave him. We prayed with him, of course, and the advice that I gave him is not to go up there, upset and angry like that. You should seek counsel and get you a lawyer and find out where she at first, because if you don't find her, you done wasted, thousands of dollars to go up there. And if you do find her, what if you do something that you regret? If you don't have a something like that, established, you can get thrown in jail up there, man. She can call the cops on you and say you trespassing.
Mhm.
So you don't want to, you don't want to make decisions when you're upset, or make rash decisions like that. You need to make logical decisions, and sometimes that's hard to do when you're emotional about about your child, or whatever the situation may be, or there's homelessness, or you're having financial hardship. But I've been there before, so I understand what it feels like to be upset. And I understand that sometimes you have to go get counsel from somebody, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So, in your creation of my Abba Fathers, and for like the partnerships that you've established now, and you guys are really helping to resource and reach out to the community. How do you guys actually get the word out into the communities as to the work that you're doing, and how do you engage them?
Oh yeah, by our website, it's MyAbbaFather.net. We actually have a marketing agency that's supposed to start working on that here pretty soon. I'm working with them now. I've been having meetings with them. But the website is MyAbbaFather.net. It's MyAbbaFather.net. And you're allowed to send a message on there, and I'll get to it. I'll read the message I am personally, and we can set up a talk.
Mm. So, how do you define spiritual fatherhood?
How do I define spiritual fatherhood?
Mhm.
Spiritual fatherhood. Spiritual fatherhood would be somebody that's a father figure that helps you to grow spiritually instead of. So a spiritual fatherhood would be a pastor in your life, or somebody who holds you accountable spiritually.
Mhm. Oh wow. So, what role does faith play in your approach to family and community?
Oh yeah, a big part of it. The Word of God. I can find anything that I need right there. The instructions I need right there in the Word of God.
Mhm. So, I mean, but do you guys, or do you in particular, are you holding like maybe it's like some Bible study or something like that where you're actually teaching the word, or how are just by you reading the Bible, you're not just keeping that to yourself, are you?
Now I'm actually about to start a Bible study online. It's funny you said that. Yeah, next week. Yeah, my
Okay.
I've been talking to him about it. Just surrender preach at my church in front of the church, and I'm about to start a Bible study live here pretty soon. Probably gonna start it next week. Actually, yeah, you got on that, yeah. But the ministry is still separate from MyAbbaFather. That's gonna be two different things. Like I said, we're not allowed to turn people away. If you need resources, you need to come and talk to me. We're not gonna slap you with the Bible. Jesus is there for us, but if you need resources, come and talk to me. Some people, they get afraid to ask because they're afraid that we're gonna send them to hell if they come to ask. We're not gonna send you to hell. We're not gonna send you to damnation. If you need help, make sure you go to the site and shoot a message. We'll be able to help you. That's God's love right there, being able to help people. Yeah, and I
So,
am.
so do you guys actually have like just like in the community, do you have something like a little center that's somewhere that's like right out in the middle of the community where you guys just engage with the community?
Well, we've been meeting at the library lately. We've been meeting at the library, but no, we don't have a building because we're raising funds for it now. The location that I had in mind, I've looked all over Jackson is where we at, and I can't find what I need. We're gonna have to just start with some land from scratch and build it because this organization for fathers. I mean, I hadn't seen anything like it in the entire United the division that God has given me. Don't get me wrong, there are other organizations that help fathers, but not to this extent that MyAbbaFather does. Uh,
Hmm.
this right here, this organization is definitely a game changer. It's more to being a father than just working a job and paying child support. You know what I'm saying? That's what we got to understand. We understand that it's your job to provide for the children, but you got to provide for the children financially as well as be there for them. You have to be there in the child's life, and in order for you to do that, you got to be an example. You know,
So can you tell us what has the seminary school taught you about yourself?
the seminary school taught me that I need to learn even more about the Word of God. It's still a lot that I don't know. It's still a lot. I'm still learning. I'm still a student of the Word, and it also gives me a chance to self-reflect. It's just more accountability, is what it is for me.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So are you now ordained, or are you working on being ordained?
Well, I'm gonna be ordained when the church starts, but I am gonna get the certificate to preach.
Okay. So how far along are you on that?
I should be getting it here pretty soon in the mail. Hopefully, pretty soon. I'll talk to my pastor about that. Yeah, the license
Oh,
to
congratulations.
that, man.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Um, how do you balance ministry preparation with nonprofit leadership?
Oh yeah. Well, the Word of God, I just spend about an hour a day in that. Every day. Every day I spend about an hour in that, and then also I have a set schedule. I just make phone calls and meetings. My day pretty much consists of meetings with presidents and vice presidents those in order to start raising funds for this land that we got to get.
Well, so in that all that preparation, so this is going to be your church that you guys are going to be building.
Well, it's don't have to be two separate buildings. The nonprofit, I want that location to actually be a place that's more people to come into. The where like it's not going to be connected to the church. There's my Abba Father church ministers two separate things. But I want the nonprofit for fathers. I want that to have like a location where people can just come in and just relax. Maybe like a TV sofa type deal. community event rooms so we can have an events, and also the basketball court. We got to have a basketball court and weights and stuff like that in there too. Is what we're looking at.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your legacy and leadership. Can you tell us what was the mission behind Gibson Advisory?
Oh yeah, Gibson Advisory is consultant services that I offer people, for people who actually have ideas, and that people who's actually willing to follow through with ideas. I've worked with a couple of people with trucking, and it takes about um, 2 or 3 trucks in order to make the money. The trucking industry and the healthcare, 2 industries that I work in.
Mhm. So so your consultancy is basically just for transportation and medical, or is it pretty much across the board for all industries?
It's across the board for all industries, but those are just the 2 industries that I'm in now. Yeah, the business principles apply to all industries.
Okay. And why did you decide to step away from consulting?
I decided consulting because of the greater call to the ministry, and that started to take up my time, so I have to default myself to that. But don't get me wrong. I said if somebody has a project that's actually worth me, putting some time and effort into, I will, So, but the ministry and the community is priority.
Well, so do you guys partner with any of the service agencies of your local county, city, and state government to come out and do like fundraisers or things with the community?
Yeah, grant that we're about to in January with MDHS, Mississippi Department of Human Services. So we're working with them right now to reach the community out in the Jackson area.
How did your consulting work prepare you for nonprofit leadership?
The consultant is basically a framework to where I'm able to solve problems. That's really all it is, and that's basically what we're doing in the nonprofit sector is helping people by solving their issues.
Mhm.
Uh, Consulting work, solving an issue. It might be in accounting, whether they might have a mess to where we clean up their account, or it might be strategy. They might get stuck and they might need help with strategy to get out of their situation or to expand, or they might be working alone and might need just mentoring and might need to expand. And
Mhm.
some people have the business knowledge that they need, and they might just need accountability. They might need somebody who just needs to be held accountable week.
Mhm. So, what does legacy mean to you?
What legacy means to me is more than money. A legacy to me would mean people are inspired. It's a legacy. People are inspired and able to learn from what it is that you're doing.
So, how do you want my Abba Father to be remembered 10 years from now?
Um, I want my father to be remembered that as long as you keep trying, God to take care of the rest. And even though things might not add up or you might not see the outcome, because personally, I'm an over analytical type person, and I like to see the outcome before I do it, or I like to have a plan, before I do it. And sometimes things don't line up that way. Things don't always happen the way you plan them, and sometimes you have to learn that you have to depend on other people in order to get things done. So I want MyAbbaFather to be remembered as an organization where people can come for help without judgment.
So, what advice would you give to young black men seeking purpose?
Um, Advice that I would give young black men seeking purpose, I would just number one establish a relationship with Jesus Christ and to do some self reflection. That would be the best thing to do. That self reflection and that self accountability. Those dark closet that you don't want to look at. I would start there. I would start there. The areas that you don't want to talk about, I said that's where you need to start. You know,
So, how do you build trust with communities that haven't been historically underserved?
uh, face to face. Yeah,
Mhm.
face to face is the best route. With people and being patient.
Mhm. What's the biggest challenge in leading a nonprofit today?
Biggest challenge be getting funds to do exactly what it is that you're trying to do. It's a lot of foundations out here that they offer, but one thing that I'm realizing is that a lot of the foundations they don't fund capital like land, and buildings and stuff like that in order for you to truly, fully commit to your purpose.
How do you measure impact in your work?
I measure impact by the number of fathers or families that come to me, and pre and post. We ask these people, their situation. We get their information, their income. We ask them how we treated them, and then we ask them, do you fix the problem that you can't.
Well, what partnerships or collaborations are you most excited about?
This MDHS grant that we're supposed to be getting in January, and I'm really excited about that. That right there is going to be a huge partnership, and I believe it's a 4-year grant, and I believe that we're going to change a lot. We're going to change.
So, what do you guys plan on doing with that?
Well, with this grant, basically, I'm gonna set up an office in Jackson. I'm gonna set up an office. I'm gonna hire a couple of people, an executive director, an intake person to be able to, receive their information and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna focus on building relationships. That's what I'm gonna focus on. Most importantly, with the courtroom, that would be the first relationship that I have to, work on. Establishing that trust with the court system is probably gonna be the most important relationship that I can establish with those funds. Should be a problem like MDHS on our side. That shouldn't be an issue.
So, when we chatted, I asked you in Black history, who was the most influential person in your life and career? You told me that it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Can you tell us why is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the most influential figure in your life?
Martin Luther King is the most influential figure in my life because he fought the right way. He fought with peace and love, and that's the main thing. God is love. And
Mhm.
even though a lot of people didn't agree with his tactics, man, when he sacrificed his life and he inspired people, he left a legacy. And now, he made a difference. We're not segregated no more. Don't get me wrong, we still deal with racism, but there's laws in place in order to fight that.
What aspects of Dr. King's leadership resonate most with your mission?
I'd have to say, looking out of love. It's all about love. If we're not doing it in love, I said we should be not doing it right.
Mhm.
That was Dr. King's main. That was his main thing. Love.
Right. So, I mean, if you had to do anything different, would you do anything different?
Yeah, not go to that homeless situation. Yeah, that whole situation. If I could have just avoided that, I think I would have been good. But other
No,
than that,
no,
nah.
I was talking about the Dr. King situation with you, with him being peaceful and so forth. Would you do anything different other than what he did?
No, I probably would do the exact same thing he did. But he was a lot more patient than I was, though. It was.
Hmm. How do you incorporate Dr. King's teachings into your nonprofit work?
Well, with the situation, the main way I incorporate that is I would have to say in the co-parenting situation. A lot of the guys come to me, and I've had some women about the situation of co-parenting. how the kids drag through it, and it's not really, it's not a bright situation. The situation is not bright, and although it's hard, to show love in that situation, you have to show love in that situation because it's not just you on the line; it's other people involved.
Well, I'll tell you this: a lot of people actually, when we do this particular part of the show, there's an enormous amount of people that have had this great influence by Dr. King. And so, just when you think about Dr. King in general, and you think about, your life from beginning up to this point, how could you put yourself in this spot with Dr. King and see what were the likenesses between the two of you that actually helped you become who you are?
Hmm. Tough question. I don't know, man. I don't think I can put myself in the category as Dr. King. Dr. King is inspirational, but I just with love, man. That's really all I can say. The leadership that he gave back in the 1960s is inspirational, and I don't really think I can be in the same category as him. But what I try to do is just make sure I try to look at it from all perspectives. When the people come and tell me, I just make sure I listen. And that's what people are looking for. It's not about how much you know. It's not even about the resources. Really, it's about you caring. And people want to know that you care and that they want to be treated equally.
Well, actually, what I was getting at is no, I wasn't comparing you to Dr. King, but just the resemblance in your journey compared to his journey. And I want to know how can do you see any likenesses as to how you both got to where you are, like how you got to where you are based on, you know, let's say like you went through the homeless situation, you went through the military, all this other good stuff, and you was doing your thing in life. When you look at that part of your life, is there any part of your life from that point that you can see a comparison to where Dr. King started off to where he got to being a civil rights leader?
You want to know if there's any comparisons?
Do you have any of that? Can you see any of that?
I mean, I can see the resilience that I've had.
Mhm.
You know, that he had as far as civil rights and not taking no for an answer.
Right.
That's what I can see the resilience between us two, and I just like resilience he had
Hmm.
for civil rights, us being treated equally.
Hmm.
You know, blacks and whites. I showed the same resilience. Having same equal rights as far as fatherhood in my own children's life.
Right.
So I can see. Yeah.
Okay. What does beloved community mean to you?
Beloved community.
Hmm.
Beloved community. What that means to me is a place that people can feel safe and at home at. If I was to go to a beloved community, I would want to be able to walk down and feel at home,
Hmm.
and also feel that I'm able to get the help I need.
Hmm. How do you honor Black history through my Abba Father?
We I mean, we get together and have some food. We have a gathering. Last Martin Luther King Day, we just got together and had some food. Everybody just talked about their favorite, Black History Month person.
Mhm. What's your message to fathers during Black History Month?
My message to fathers for Black History Month was the same message that I give them for the rest of the year. You need to be there for your children. I would expect, a father to be there for his children, regardless of the situation, whether you got money or not, whether your credit right or not, whether you got transportation or not. regardless of the color of your skin or not. You need to be there for your children because your children need to love you.
So, how do you see faith and activism working together?
Faith and activism working together.
Mhm.
That is a great question. Activism working. Well, I mean, there is no color on God's love. Whether we
Mhm.
black or white or whatever our social status is. You know, God's love is what makes everything work. You know, and that's how we're able to stand on whatever it is what's right. That's how I stand on what's right. Based on God.
Yeah, but so like, then just thinking about faith and thinking about activism. Faith is believing in what's going to be, higher being, whatever have you. Your activism is when you're activating, you're actually out, uh, actively working or doing within or doing something to contribute to what it is that you see. And so when you think about those two, you think about faith and you think about activism. Can they work together? Can they be one?
But yeah, they can. I mean, if you say you love God, you're supposed to be helping people. You know,
Mhm.
that's what you're supposed to be doing.
What would you say to Dr. King if you could speak with him today?
If I could speak to Dr. King today, what I would say to him, hmm, I would say, thank for everything you did for.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I would say to him. Thank you.
What's one quote from Dr. King that guides your daily life?
Oh yeah, the I have a dream speech. That speech is what gave us what we have today. Being able to be together. And even though sometimes we still face racism. Uh, it's not everywhere. He did make a difference.
You saying racism is not everywhere?
No, it's not everywhere.
Oh. So, how do you hope your ministry will carry forward Dr. King's legacy?
I hope that my ministry allows people to see God's love without color. That's how I
Mhm.
want, his legacy to be in my ministry. That we can all come together in God's love and not worry about, the color of our skin or our social status. That's another thing that goes
Mhm.
along.
So, how do you figure you can make that happen within your ministry?
Well, I'm gonna trust God. That's all I can do. I can't really tell you, how he gonna do it, but I know God got a plan. We just gonna get out here. I'm gonna start the Bible studies live, and then people that need help, just come and talk to me, and we can see if we can come together.
Mhm. So, if could you please give our audience some words of wisdom and encouragement? Here in your final words, and also tell them how they could connect with you on your social media, that is, or tell them about your website.
Yeah. Words of encouragement. Basically, what I give you guys is number one, establish your relationship with Jesus Christ because that's most important. And number two, if you need some mentoring or whatever like that, you can go to our website at myabbafather.net. It's MyAbbaFather.net. And it's also on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn too. My name is on LinkedIn, Quintin Bland, President and CEO of MyAbbaFather.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for spending this time with us. I appreciate you coming on, telling us about my Abba Father, because I'm sure that there are an enormous amount of people, especially in this climate, that are going to be needing and seeking help for resources, because people are coming up short now, and especially with this political climate. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and telling us about your organization because, with it being about community and helping community, that's really, really important. And I think it's also one of those things, as you mentioned earlier, that giving people the opportunity and resources that they need in order to continue not just their livelihood, but being the people that they are, it means just that much. For those of you that are watching on all of our 8 channels that we stream on, in particular the YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would ask if you would please give us your support by doing so. I would really appreciate it because not only would you have the opportunity to come and watch all shows live as they take place, but you'll also be able to go back and watch all of our previous recorded shows. For those of you that have not yet joined our community, I would appreciate if you would join our community. We have a community where you can join to get our monthly magazine, as well as we have one that when you join, where you'll have the opportunity to um, network and connect with with other professionals, learn entrepreneurship, learn the craft of what they're doing, and to help you to expand not only your business but maybe help you to expand your knowledge. And finally, I would appreciate it if you guys would take the time to go to our website, americainblackandwhite.us, because you go to our website, you will have the opportunity to get each and every um, offering that we have that includes, any services or catching the show to blog posts to everything that we offer. Please check it out. And also, you also get the opportunity to get our newsletter. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And I would ask if you would please join us again tomorrow night for another great show of America in Black and White, where we will continue to color conversations on the canvas of America. Thank you again, Quentin. I appreciate you. And I thank everybody for watching. You all have a great